I must immediately start with a disclaimer. I am not part of any religious institution or denomination. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 30 some odd years. I do know a bit about different religious beliefs. As part of being a Jehovah's Witness, you are encouraged to read and understand other beliefs in case you occur them as you knock on doors to preach the good news. I have read the Bible front to back, every page, approximately 5 or 6 times, including the King James Version. My statements in this video are not meant to be an attack on any religious belief. They are not meant to hold to an interpretation that I am actively encouraging or discouraging anybody to hold. I realize that several religious systems will not agree with the notions behind some of the biblical passages I present in this video. That's fine. I have no issues with that. The point is not to highlight the beliefs themselves or to encourage you to actively hold them or let go of them. I will be going over a variety of different beliefs, mostly based on biblical passages, as I am most knowledgeable in those. However, make no mistake, I will be presenting some arguments for a few very different belief systems. Last disclaimer. When I say AI, I mean LLMs in modernity. If I successfully argued that no Christian should use AI, then you would not be allowed to play video games with AI NPCs in them. You would not be allowed to benefit from protein folding AI. You would not be allowed to support AI chess engines. Obviously, that's ridiculous, and I'm not promoting that. So, I'm talking about LLMs in modernity, chatbots, or as we will soon see, the fruit from the forbidden tree. This video was prompted by an article where a software engineer made a religious claim that they cannot or are otherwise forbidden from using AI as it goes against their religion and must code by hand. They won this claim at work and are happily creating code by hand. In my personal opinion, good. More of this, please. What's funny here is that the woman is part of Unitarian Universalism, and that religion can include atheists. Go figure. Let's start with a softball. I'm going to use BibleGateway.com to read passages moving forward and post screenshots as I do. Genesis 1:28-30. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food," and it was so. In at least some religious belief structures, this scripture indicates that God wanted mankind to A, live forever on earth, and B, take care of all the earth, turning it into a global paradise. While God does have room to be flexible, as evidenced by Jonah and the whale, as well as other passages, he is considered to be generally consistent. Thus, many believe God still expects this from mankind today. That is, to be good stewards of the earth. If you simply Google destruction caused by data centers, you will find many pages to make good and admittedly not so good claims about the environmental impacts caused by the chatbot that spits out 10,000 lines of putrid Python code for you. This is just one example. I have gone over several others on my Enlightened Programming and Tech Bytes series. My website, linked below, have all the articles I've ever sourced over the last 2 to 3 years, or covered on streams and videos, with an abundance of information on how destructive data centers are. Suffice it to say, much like Bitcoin did in its heyday, and still does, by the way, these things cause environmental damage. This includes damage to human life. In some cases, it poses health risks to humans. Now, as stewards of the earth, God may find it acceptable, for example, that we cut down a few too many trees so we can build homes for shelters, so humans can thrive, be safe, and eventually turn the earth into a paradise anyways. Intent may have a lot to do with this. What are we using LLMs for right now, however? To what ends are we causing such damage at such a rapid speed, the likes of which we actually do not truly know the bounds of? Well, if Dario is to be believed, we could use it to eliminate most cancers, as he writes in this article. How are we looking on that front? Not so hot. Instead, LLMs are used for war, activities of the coitus nature, to replace your wife with a robot wife, to replace your husband with a robot husband, to replace your pet with a robot pet, to replace your kid with a robot kid, and the final frontier, to replace yourself. This leads to the next point. 1 Corinthians 6:19. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. Numerous studies, including some referenced by the article I showed on screen earlier, show that using AI can necessarily lead to cognitive atrophy or a diminishing of thinking faculties. Romans 13:13. Let us behave decently, as in the daytime, not in carousing, I think is how it's pronounced, and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. One of the main principles in several belief systems is that you should treat your body as a gift from God. Thus, becoming a drunkard and destroying the capabilities God gave you is an affront to that gift. Why is a willful diminishing of your cognitive sovereignty via LLM usage any different? Mark 12:30-31. From Jesus' own words. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Do LLMs help us treat our neighbors like ourselves? By the way, this isn't the only article, nor the only scientific study to show that using LLMs alters how humans interact with each other. The more we use them, the more we tend to see each other as another LLM, and the more we talk to each other like that. Despite all of this, we have bigger problems to contend with. According to many belief systems, Satan in the Garden of Eden made a proposal of two natures. One nature of the proposal is that God made a mistake thinking that humans would worship him by choice, especially when presented with more tempting offers. This is further enhanced by the story of Job. The other nature is that humans have to exercise their free will when choosing to disobey God, thus giving up their ability to think properly, a gift given to them in the first place by God. For the more discerning members of my audience, you can already see where I'm going with this. Let's throw another softball, lighthearted argument based on this. Demon possession. There are a few passages that discuss demon possession. Whether or not they happen today is up for debate, depending on what your belief system is. Some believe that Jesus bound some of the demons up when he rose from the dead, or even placed restrictions on some of their activities forthwith. This is why some people say there are no possessions today, despite there being a few in biblical times. Others believe they still happen today. Regardless, let's take the more restrictive view. Demons are bound or restricted from possessing people today. Do you think demons, and particularly Satan, would want to circumvent this restriction in, let's say, creative ways? In Matthew 9, there was a demon-possessed man who was mute. In Mark 5, there was a demon-possessed man with great strength. In Mark 7, Jesus remote desktoped and removed a demon from but a child. In Luke 22, Satan himself is described as entering Judas. In Acts 16, a slave girl was foretelling. In 2 Corinthians 11:3-4, some people believe there is an insinuation that anybody not representing the gospel properly might be possessed by an evil spirit with an evil intent. Again, depending on your belief system, a form of possession isn't strictly the taking over of someone. It can begin with something more subtle and sinister. Belief itself. I cannot count the number of times I've discovered that there is a religious group worshiping AI as a literal deity, a divine being, or God himself. Again, I've gone over this a lot and have plenty of articles on my Enlightened Programming website, linked below. In fact, one time, my friend and I had to report a group of people to the FBI as we were worried they were going to enact violence on some political figures whom they believed were suppressing the deity inside the LLM chatbot they had stumbled on. Yes, much like the demons and Satan are believed to have operated in the past with Gnosticism, atheism, paganism, and other belief systems, LLMs are primed to distort the truth of the gospel and make people believe in falsehoods. 2 Corinthians 11:14. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Yes, LLMs have very uncanny mechanisms, nay, ontologies, such that they can look like a digital angel of light. Many people believe that AI will even save the human race. Of course, there is no doubt LLMs would behave this way. The Christian beliefs, the Bible, and many other beliefs are stored in the corpus of the training data that LLMs are trained upon. You are bound to get it to spit up some chewed up, non-factual mishmash of those beliefs, and people will fall for it, as they did when the demons participated in magic practices, thus deceiving the entire nation of Egypt, the leaders of which vehemently opposed God's people. Just saying. There are many more points to go over, but this leads to the ultimate point. At this point, I must pause and ask you to bear with me, as this last portion cannot receive due justice without due explanation. Despite some beliefs that demon and Satan have restricted activities on earth today, the book of Revelations strongly indicates that they must have some activities or influence nonetheless. The entire book, if believed to be about the end times, shows how the demons and Satan himself influence people and world governments to create a disgusting image of the worship of God and lead humankind to God's judgment day. I've given you the Coles Notes. It's a hunkin' chunker of a read, and I actually encourage you to read it because it's quite interesting even on its own merits. In the Book of Enoch, another interesting read, by the way, an apocryphal book, but an interesting one, the demons make a pact between each other to act in accordance with a certain goal. Ultimately, Satan leads this gang, and each demon seems to be able to have some autonomy, but at the end of the day, they're all working towards one thing. They all want to prove that you, the believer, will give up your beliefs, your mental and spiritual sovereignty in the name of comfort or a belief system you prefer, or any number of things. Now, if the demons and Satan have restrictions around their activities, but would still like to influence people, is there a particular tool one could come up with to circumvent those restrictions and influence people? One that is distributed to the mass populace, that is within the reach of your hand right now, as it is for many, many, many people around the globe? The very fact that these systems are so large to begin with that even a snapshot of one of these LLMs in a single moment in time could not be visually represented given the laws of physics can make one ponder what could be lurking in there. By the way, the black box idea isn't mine. It's been admitted to by people like Sam Altman himself. Let's put a pin on that for a moment. In the 1930s, Howard Scott started the technocrat movement. In their first article, it described what it is. At the time, the people in the United States were suffering from a lot of the same as we might suffer today, just in a different form. People were starving, out of work, in poverty, capitalism was failing them with crazy inflation, automation was taking jobs, and the photovoltaic cell had just come out, which was considered a brain for computers. In many ways, in the 1930s, the technocrats were talking about the very same thing we are today about AI. It will cure cancer. It will replace all jobs. It will serve mankind. It will make better, faster, smarter decisions. What do we do with all the people without jobs? We give them energy bucks, the precursor to Bitcoin. It amazes me to this day that certain Christians will back crypto, not realizing the evil roots behind them. But I digress. Yes, these energy bucks were ledgered to you and only you, thus meaning no more crime, since nobody else could use them. Your kids could not inherit them. It was a digital UBI. It was based on how much energy a human could produce in the workforce in their whole life. It spawned from an idea that exists in the Technocratic Handbook, a book I've read back to front. In it is interesting, the Technate map includes South America and Greenland for a technocrat utopia. Interesting how Trump was talking about Greenland the minute Elon Musk was invited into the White House, and Elon Musk's grandfather was a co-founder of the technocratic movement alongside Howard Scott. Probably just a coincidence. In the Technocrat Handbook, Christianity specifically is attacked. The reason the energy bucks and such an avid devotion to technological acceleration is given creed by the technocrats is because they see you as a machine. Energy in, energy out, much like the PayPal mafia sees you today. The argument is that there is no true Christian. Their proof? Take all forms of sustenance away from a Christian husband and his family. As the husband watches his family starve and or die, see how quickly the Christian husband and father denounces his faith if asked to do so in exchange for feeding his family. Thusly, all humans are machines. This sounds oddly familiar to something we've already talked about. Enter Margaret Mead. Her and her husband were heavily involved in the scientific community in a variety of ways. Men who stare at goats? Yeah, her and her husband. Not kidding. Guess who she absolutely adored? In one of her earlier, somewhat autobiographical books, she exclaims how much she enjoys the company of none other than Howard Scott, the founder of technocracy. She uses technocracy and the idea that humans are machines to introduce the idea of gender fluidity into the scientific landscape, as she herself is somewhat bisexual. If all humans are machines, then what is gender or sex anyways, right? In the 1940s, a lot of this picks up steam with cross-pollination of scientific ideas in a particular pre-World II country. This kind of framing of the human species gives rise to the treatment of humans as nothing but this, machines. You can see how certain people could have catapulted this idea into horrific atrocities against fellow humans. After the Second World War, technocracy didn't end. The United States, as publicly recorded, used Operation Paperclip to bring in scientists from Germany, which gave rise to the precursor to NASA, NACA or NACA, headed by a few people including Wernher von Braun. This gave rise to a few more things, like the Stanford Torus Project. However, space travel is risky and full of radiation. How do we circumvent this? Humans are not built for space travel as they are. Perhaps we can augment them? This gives rise to the ideas of cyborgs in the 1970s, with Margaret Mead close to finishing her time infiltrating scientific leaders with thoughts originating from technocracy. Move forward to today, and you'll see that the more things have changed, the more they've stayed the same. Neuralink. Okay, so what does this have to do with Christianity, Spiro? Or any religious beliefs? How does this contradict a religious belief system at all? The whole kit and caboodle is all one giant package with one very straightforward goal, often said blatantly to your face. Your sovereignty will be replaced, and you will use your free will to choose to replace it. To paraphrase Satan, who said it himself in the garden, in an attempt to get Eve to eat from the forbidden tree, well, let's just read from Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." "You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it.